Welcome back. Tonight we're diving into something that sounds boring but is actually crucial: tariffs, specifically Trump's tariffs. The promise was simple: America first. Tariffs would protect American jobs and revive manufacturing. But reality was far messier. We're looking at 5 major US companies that changed course because of these policies. These are household names: Harley-Davidson, General Motors, Caterpillar, Ford, and Whirlpool. Their stories reveal the unintended consequences and financial pain behind the headlines. We'll skip the economic jargon and focus on what really happened. What does it look like when political slogans meet the reality of global supply chains? Let's break down what happened, why, and who really paid the price. Because behind every policy, there are real companies, real jobs, and a real cost. And spoiler, it wasn't China footing the bill. Let's start with Harley-Davidson, the sound of American freedom, right? So why did this icon announce it was moving some production overseas during a trade war meant to protect American industry? Simple retaliatory tariffs. When the US hit Europe with steel tariffs, the EU fired back, targeting Harleys. Suddenly, each bike sold in Europe cost $2,200 more. Europe is Harley's second biggest market. Harley faced a choice: eat the cost, pass it to customers, or move production. They chose survival. The company announced it would shift production for European bikes to international plants, like in Thailand. The backlash was fierce. President Trump blasted Harley on Twitter, threatening higher taxes. Harley was caught between tariffs and presidential outrage, rebelling against the very administration claiming to protect them. The irony? A policy meant to keep jobs in America pushed an American icon to move jobs abroad. Workers in US plants felt betrayed, but Harley argued it had no choice. The tariffs created an existential threat to their international business. This wasn't about offshoring for profit, it was about survival in a trade war they never wanted. The global economy is deeply interconnected. One policy can have ripple effects far beyond its target. Harley-Davidson became a poster child for the unintended consequences of economic nationalism. The roar of a Harley in Europe now comes with a new accent and a lesson in how trade wars can backfire. When you fire the first shot in a trade war, you can't be surprised when the other side fires back. The casualties aren't always who you expect. In this case, the bullet ricocheted off the EU and hit a factory in Wisconsin. Harley's story is a warning. Global supply chains don't bend to political slogans. The cost of protectionism? Sometimes it's the very jobs you're trying to save, and the sound of American manufacturing pride just got a little quieter. That's the real price of tariffs. Let's see who else paid it. Next up, General Motors. For decades, GM was the bedrock of American industry. But in 2018, GM announced it was closing 5 plants and cutting over 14,000 jobs. Why? Tariffs on steel and aluminum were a major factor. GM said tariffs had already cost them $1 billion. When the price of steel jumps, so does the cost of every car rolling off the line. The administration argued tariffs would help American steel producers, but ignored the bigger picture. Most US manufacturing uses steel, not makes it. It's like helping the flour mill by tripling flour prices, then wondering why bakeries are closing. President Trump threatened to cut GM's subsidies and demanded plants reopen, but GM stood firm. The tariffs weren't the only reason for the closures, but they were the tipping point. The Lordstown, Ohio plant's closure was especially painful. A community lost its economic heart. The promise was to protect American jobs. The result? Thousands lost. The logic was circular. Protect steel jobs by making steel expensive. Then lose auto jobs because cars cost too much to build. GM wasn't being unpatriotic. They were responding to market forces, including a government-induced spike in costs. The very workers tariffs were supposed to protect became collateral damage. Economic policies don't exist in a vacuum. Pull one lever, and the whole machine can break. For 14,000 GM workers, this wasn't theory, it was a pink slip. The lesson? You can't fix a complex economy with a single blunt tool. Tariffs were meant to help, but for GM, they hurt. The American dream got downsized, and the cost was paid by workers, not foreign governments. That's the reality behind the rhetoric. Let's keep going. Next up, Caterpillar. Another American giant, another unintended consequence. The story repeats. Let's dig in. Caterpillar, builders of the world's biggest machines, ran into the same wall steel tariffs. You can't build a bulldozer without steel. When tariffs hit, Caterpillar's costs soared. The company told investors tariffs would cost them up to $200 million in just 6 months. How do you cover that? Raise prices, cut costs, or take a hit to profits? Caterpillar chose to pass costs to customers, construction, mining, and agriculture companies. That means higher costs for roads, bridges, and food. Tariffs ripple through the whole economy. The hidden tax of tariffs doesn't stay with the manufacturer, it lands on everyone. The administration said tariffs would make foreign countries pay. In reality, American companies and consumers paid. Caterpillar also faced retaliatory tariffs abroad, making their products less competitive overseas. So, higher costs at home, fewer sales abroad, a double hit. The company scrambled to rework its supply chain, but you can't outmaneuver a global trade war. The irony? Caterpillar, a symbol of American manufacturing, was hurt by policies meant to help it. They supported fixing trade imbalances, but not like this. Tariffs on raw materials are a tax on domestic manufacturing. You can't help manufacturers by making their supplies more expensive. It's like helping a runner by making them wear lead boots. Caterpillar was forced to run with extra weight, and it showed. The lesson: trade wars don't have clean winners. Even the protected get caught in the crossfire. The cost of tariffs? It's everywhere. In higher prices, lost sales, and a less competitive America. Caterpillar's story is proof, and they weren't alone. Next, let's look at Ford. Another American classic, another costly lesson. Here's what happened. Ford, the company that put America on wheels, hit $1 billion roadblock tariffs. Steel and aluminum tariffs raised costs for everyone, even companies sourcing metals domestically. Domestic producers raised prices too, knowing imports were more expensive. Ford's CEO said tariffs cost the company $1 billion in profit. That money could have gone to new tech or jobs. Instead, it plugged a hole created by policy. Ford launched an $11 billion restructuring, including job cuts and canceled projects. One casualty, the Ford Focus Active. Tariffs made importing it from China too expensive, so Ford canceled it for the US market. The administration hoped tariffs would force Ford to build the car in America. Instead, Americans just lost the option. Tariffs didn't bring jobs back, they erased choices and revenue. Ford, an American icon, was punished by an America First policy. The real story isn't just the billion-dollar loss, it's the ripple effect. Canceled cars, delayed investments, and uncertainty. How do you plan for the future when the rules keep changing? Even for a company that manufactures in the US, global supply chains matter. Tariffs were a blunt tool that caused collateral damage. When Ford says your policy is costing them $1 billion, maybe it's time to listen. The world has changed. Manufacturing is global. Ford wanted to move forward, but tariffs had them stuck in reverse. The lesson: you can't out-tariff the 21st century. The cost: billions, lost jobs, and lost opportunities. And the bill landed right here at home. Next, let's talk about Whirlpool, a company that asked for tariffs and still got burned. Here's how. Whirlpool, maker of washers, dryers, and fridges, actually asked for tariffs to protect against foreign competition. The administration delivered, slapping tariffs on imported washing machines. At first, it worked. Whirlpool hired 200 new workers in Ohio. But then came the steel and aluminum tariffs. Suddenly, the cost to build appliances in America shot up. Whirlpool's profits were squeezed, and they had to raise prices. A study found washing machine prices rose 12%, about $86 per washer. Dryers, not even subject to tariffs, also got more expensive because of higher steel costs. Who paid? American consumers. The tariffs cost families $1.5 billion a year. For 200 new jobs, that's $815,000 per job, paid by everyone who bought a washer or dryer. Protectionism didn't eliminate costs, it just shifted them to consumers. Whirlpool also faced retaliatory tariffs abroad, making exports harder. The company got the protection it wanted, but still ended up squeezed by the broader trade war. The lesson: even the winners in a trade war can lose. Tariffs are a hidden tax, buried in the price tag at the store. The best-laid protectionist plans can backfire, leaving consumers with lighter wallets. Whirlpool's story shows you can't build a fortress around one company without the walls caving in on everyone. In the end, the cost of tariffs was paid by American families. And the market became less competitive, not more. That's the spin cycle of trade policy. Let's wrap up. So, what have we learned from Harley-Davidson, GM, Caterpillar, Ford, and Whirlpool? Tariffs meant to protect American jobs often did the opposite, raising costs, killing jobs, and hiking prices. The real cost wasn't paid by foreign governments, but by American workers and consumers. It was a self-inflicted wound, where the cure became part of the disease. In a global economy, supply chains are a web. Pull one thread and the whole thing unravels. The lesson slogans don't pay the bills, real people do. As trade policies evolve, we need to ask, who really pays the price? These 5 companies show the answer is often us. Thanks for watching, see you next time.